This is Chris Edlin with Catching Colorado, and we are back for an absolutely awesome tie. I have become a huge fan of this fly. I have not tied too many of them, but they're an incredible hopper pattern. They crush fish, and they are so fun to tie. I like tying bigger patterns in general because I can't see as well with the smaller patterns, but I want to tie this one up for you, see what you guys think. I'm going to tie this up in a pink tan, and right now I have a 52-62 hook. This is a size 8. You could tie these in 4, 6, 8, 10. I've seen them go up to size 14. I don't know if I would ever tie that. I think I would probably go with a 10 at smallest. But either way, we have size 8 in the vise today. And then I have UTC 140 thread. This is a like pink color. You could use pink, you could use salmon, you could use tan. You choose what you're tying up color-wise, and that's what you can use. Doesn't really matter. Thread's not super important here of color, but what is important is definitely the thickness. So I'm tying, again, a 140. And I've got some better scissors. These are Dr. Slicks. Very excited about them. And they cut things very close. So I am doing much better with my trimming now that I have a pair of scissors that's actually worth crap. So what I'm going to do is just a nice, thin, smooth body. And I'm going to come all the way back to the point here. Basically right at the bend of the hook. And then I'm going to beef up the thread a little bit here. What we're going to do is we're going to use some super glue on this. So I'm just giving that super glue something else to bond with. It's going to have a bit of a bond already, but this is just going to give it a little bit more grip. So now that we've got that tied in, what we want to do is we want to take a glued piece of 2mm foam. You are going to glue two colors together. So I used 3M Super 90. You could use pretty much anything, but I use Super 90, and on the bottom I have a pink, and on the top I have a tan. I have a very rough cut, rounded body at the end of there. It doesn't matter so much. You could use a stamp if you want, like a Chubby Chernobyl stamp, to cut your foam, but this is what I want, just a really long piece with kind of a rounded end. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it on the hook, and I'm going to measure about half a shank. So something like that, I would say, is pretty good. And then I'm going to just take a fingernail and just put it in there on the side. Now I know where to tie it. Now I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to grab my super glue. This is Gorilla Gel Glue. And I'm just going to put a dot right here on the back of the hook. Maybe a little more super glue than I wanted, but that will work for now. And then we're going to take that piece of foam that we just measured, and we're going to set it right on there, and we're going to get 4 wraps around all of this. So there's 1, there's 2, 3, 4. And I'm pulling tight on each one. I just really want that to be smack dab on the top of the hook there. So now that we've got that done, what we're going to do is, this part's a little bit tricky. Sometimes I'll rotate my vise around to do it. But basically, you're going to roll that thread underneath the body, and then you are going to get a multiple segmentation here. So I'm going to segment the tail here in one spot, and I'm kind of switching my hands here to help me out. So there is one segmentation, and I'll get one more wrap in there just to kind of finish that off. And then you can come up here in this top, and you can get another segmentation right in that very top. And this last one is kind of hard. If I get a little bit more thread, it helps me work it around the bottom there, and then I can really get that last wrap in there on that back. So let's see here. Try to get it again. Definitely a tough one, but once you get it, it looks really sweet. So there we go. Now I've kind of got that hopper profile there on the back. And then what you can do after you get a couple wraps on that back segment is you can work that forward again, and one more time, forward again to here. And now we have sort of our little wispy hopper tail there. You make it a little bit longer, you make it a little bit shorter, but essentially that's the tail portion of this fly. Now, Charlie tied up this fly, Charlie Craven, and he did not use any more super glue than that until the end of the fly. What I've kind of found as I bring my thread forward to about a third of what's left of the shank is that if I don't use super glue, it starts to rotate on me as we get forward of the fly. So I just take, again, the tiniest little dab. It's nothing crazy. And then I lay it down, and then I come over the top and make another segment. And again, I'm focused on squaring this up right on the top of the hook. And then I'm going to, underneath, come up another third-ish, and we are going to drop another little dab of glue. Definitely pushing out a little more glue than I usually do. That's all right. So we're going to get that thread spiraled there. 3 twists. Make sure everything's centered. And then this last turn, just make sure you don't go all the way to the hook eye. Just a little bit back. And I'm not going to super glue this last part because I want to be able to get underneath there to whip finish my fly at the end. So I'm going to create my last segment here on this fly. And that right there is our hopper body. So really, really easy to tie. Just need to make some segments in the fly, and you're off to the races. So after tying in the foam and using the super glue, the next portion of this fly is going to be using some white macrame yarn for the wing. So I'm going to take a clump about like that, and I'm going to lay it up here on top, and I'm just going to split it right in half. And we're going to do one more turn after folding it forward. And then next what I want to do, and this isn't a necessary step, especially if you're fishing maybe a stream with less current, but I'm tying in a little indicator. So this is a pink indicator here, and I'm just going to get 2 wraps on that post and just kind of have that sit up there. Notice I haven't trimmed anything really yet. And then next step I'm going to do is take my thumb and kind of smash this down. So Charlie ties this fly, and this was very helpful to him, and I found it very helpful for me. The foam is pretty dense, so I try to smash this down here so that it bends a little bit easier. So I've smashed that down a little bit. You can see where my imprints are. And then I'm going to take a little post of black foam, same 2mm. We're going to fold it right inside of that head. And then as we fold it, if you've got enough to grab on both sides, you can kind of bring both pieces of foam forward, put your thumb on it, and then you can kind of pull that forward on the foam part while pulling kind of back on the head. And that's going to create you a nice little hopper eye head dealio. And then I'm going to come right over those same wraps we were just doing, and I'm going to get 3 or 4 turns in there just to make it really, really tight. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're just going to snip these eyes. Don't pull them, just snip them flush. So you don't want to pull them or they'll disappear inside of the head there. So I've snipped both of those flush. Feel good about that. And then up here on top, we just have some trimming to do. So we're going to take the main piece of foam. We're going to get our scissors in close, and we are going to snip as flush as possible on that. And then we are going to take our wings, and we're going to cut our wings about the length of the bend of the hook. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to cut the wings. So that part's good. And then with the indicator, you can cut it for preference. I don't like a big indicator, like something a little bit smaller. So something like that is pretty good for me. So that right there looks like kind of a weird caterpillar at the moment. But this next step is going to turn this from caterpillar into one of the coolest hoppers you've ever seen. And that is with these little legs here. So all this is that same piece of foam, nothing different, cut in about a 2mm by 2mm square. And then you are going to basically cut a very steep angle on the leg so that you have your little hopper leg there. And you'll see what that's going to look like once it's on there. What we are using for the legs on this fly is a piece of, this is Sexy Floss. And it's just a very like ribby material. It's super stretchy, and I have it in tan. And so what you are supposed to do here is basically just tie on the legs with one overhand knot over the tip of that little hopper leg that I just showed you. So let me just get this lined up here, and then I'll show you kind of what we're working with. So that is kind of where I'm at with this. I've got an overhand knot with the leg hanging off, and I'm going to pull that really tight, doing that off camera, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like. You also want to try to work that, if you can, pretty far up the leg, so that you've got something to grip onto at the very end of the leg there. And when you're done, you snip off one side, and you'll have something that looks a lot like this. So I've got that kicked out. It's just tied on the very end there, and it's ready to be tied in to my hopper. Then I'm gonna grab another piece of Sexy Floss, and I'm gonna do the other leg. And my goal on this one is to try to have another piece of that Sexy Floss kind of stick out the other side of this next leg. So that one's kind of sticking out as a, we'll just call that its right hand leg. And then we want another piece of Sexy Floss to kind of stick out as its left hand leg right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this one on the far side of the fly, and I'm going to measure the end of the leg with the bend of the hook. And we're going to tie that flat with this head here. So we're just going to get one pull, two pulls in on that leg. So now that one's pretty much tied in. And then we're going to grab the near side leg, and we're just going to match it up with that one. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get one nice pull on that, and two nice pull on that. And it'll kind of help splay those legs out a little bit. And then I will do one more securing wrap just to make sure we're in like Flynn there, if you will. And then what we've got is kind of these little X bars up here of foam. We are going to trim these pieces of foam out. So I get in pretty close there and just trim it flush. And then I flip the fly, and I'm going to grab that same thing, and I'm going to get in pretty close there, and I'm going to trim him out. So now we've got both of our legs connected here, and we've got the ends trimmed out. We have pretty long hopper legs at the moment. And then what you're going to do is you're going to be left with these like stubble ends from your Sexy Floss from cutting the front there. And we are going to tie in these legs here on this side. What you want to do is you want to give yourself a little btie of a gap. So don't tie them in a straight V. Tie one and then spread it out and tie the next one. That way they kind of float out a little bit instead of being just a true V. And then you're going to do the same thing to the other side of this fly. So I'm going to get my Sexy Floss kind of laid up on that side, and we're going to do one wrap there, and then come forward and wrap it again. Whoops. Looks like we missed our leg there. So let's try that again. All right, there's one wrap, and then we'll go back for the next wrap, and then one in the center just to kind of finally secure it. And then you can kind of play with these now, right? Just kind of get them in a place that you like them. So I like to put them down on the sides of the legs maybe a little bit more facing kind of out and down, but play with it, see what you like. And then the last thing that we're gonna tie in is, this is a Ice Dub in UV Cinnamon by Hairline. And we are just gonna use this to cover up all of our thread work here on the front of the fly. And I'm gonna use a very thin noodle, nothing too crazy. I like the Ice Dub, it gives it a little bit of pop. I've always liked the Ice Dubs. I think they're pretty fun to work with. And if you wet your fingers or you wax your line, you usually have a pretty easy time with them. So then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna come right over the head here a few times, just like you would with a chubby or anything else, and just kind of cover that thread work. And then the last thing we're gonna do is we're gonna lift these legs up and out of place. We're gonna take our thread and we're gonna lift the head up a little bit, and we're just gonna wrap that thread around that hook eye about 3 times. And then we're gonna try to sneak our whip finish tool in underneath here and get even 2 turns is fine. I go for 3 because I like the challenge. And there we go, we got the third. I'm gonna pop the end off and then make sure I don't capture that leg in there when we finish it. All right, cool. So now that we have that part done, we are going to snip the thread 3 there at the bottom. And we have most of our hopper done now. So now what we want to do is we can readjust these legs a little bit so that they're up a little higher. And then we can take our scissors and just kind of cut those back legs a little bit. They're just going to kind of touch and dance on the water. And you can kind of try to manipulate them the best you can. And then with these front ones, I'm going to just cut these a little bit shorter, because the front of a hopper is used for crawling and the back is used for jumping. So that's kind of what you're looking at for leg length, or at least what I like for the leg length. A little longer on the back, a little shorter on the front. So that right there is pretty much your completed hopper pattern. And then what I'm gonna do is flip it over, and you'll notice that head kind of was rolled a little bit, right? So what I'm gonna do is square up the head, because the rest of the body is in line with the hook shank, and now the head is too. And then let me just tighten my vise down here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a whole bunch of super glue kind of right on this upper stuff of the fly. And this is what really kind of holds everything together. And it's not gonna do anything for the weight of your fly, so don't worry too much about that. But make sure you get it on the head of the fly and on the underside of that dubbing. And then you flip it over and you have your beautiful Thunder Thighs hopper. Absolutely awesome pattern. I cannot wait to fish a ton of these. I've got a bunch of them tied up, and I am just gonna fish these till the cows come home, I think. I am so excited about this fly, and they are terribly fun to tie and extremely effective looking. So we'll see how these work on some high altitude lakes here soon. But I really appreciate you guys tuning into this episode of Catching Colorado and watching us tie the Thunder Thighs hopper. If you have any questions, leave them down below. If you have any comments or you want us to tie a future fly, let us know what flies you'd like us to tie. I would love to put them in my vise. Thanks so much. Please like and subscribe before you leave, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a great day. Thanks for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you're interested in more relatable content, you can check out these videos right here. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe down below so you can stay updated on our next adventures.